Hey, we are live. Thanks so much for showing up to the webinar, whether you're here live or watching the replay. I am really excited to introduce this Four Tendency framework to you today by Gretchen Rubin. It really helped me understand myself and allowed me to understand why I do things and don't do things so much better. And I hope that it will help you to understand yourself and the people around you and how we all respond to expectations. I kind of figured out why I had so much trouble sticking to things. I had always set up systems and tried to figure out how to be more consistent, and I struggled so much. And I always thought, well, I'm just not good at this. And it's not that I wasn't good at it, it's just my tendency to respond to that expectation that I was putting on myself. So maybe you feel like you are just can't seem to finish, can't seem to stick with things. Maybe you feel like you're taking care of everybody else and just can't seem to spend time taking care of yourself. Maybe you feel like you are always questioning everything and people get frustrated with you because you are always arguing about different points or whether or not you should do things or not. Maybe you have anxiety when you have to alter your schedule or make changes or bend the rules. Maybe that freaks you out a little bit. The Four Tendencies framework can explain all of this stuff for you and help you understand how you respond to expectations. So if you have any of these challenges, I would love for you to use the chat and make sure you interact with us. Let us know what you're thinking and what your ahas are along the way. In addition, down below, there are a question section. So go ahead and put your questions there. I'll make sure to try to answer them for you. And there's also a poll. I would love to see how our tendencies play out. So most of you came here through a quiz. So you got to take the quiz and find out what your tendency was. So indicate your tendency on the poll. I'd love to see how we play out. The fun thing is that Gretchen Rubin has done some research on how the tendencies play out on average. So we're going to take a look and open these up. Yay! So here we go, the Four Tendencies. Now, the Four Tendencies are an innate part of ourselves. Okay, they are who we are, and unless we've got some life-changing experience, trauma, something that totally changes our personality, they are in us, and they are our main tendency and how we respond. It just is the way it is. And some people say, well, it depends on the situation. No, it doesn't. It is your tendency, but we're human above all, right? So for example, I am a rebel. And just because I'm a rebel doesn't mean I'm going to not comply and resist every single thing that's asked of me, because above all, I'm human. And as humans, we all respond and attempt to avoid pain, right? We're going to go for the least painful option no matter what it is. And so, for example, if you're in a job and your boss asks you to do something, as a rebel, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to do that because you told me to do something, because the alternative would be to get fired, not have an income, can't pay my bills, can't take care of my family. So I'm going to go with the less painful alternative, obviously. But that doesn't mean that you don't resist and that your tendency is not to, your behavior will follow your tendency most of the time. But your morals and beliefs do impact your behavior because we're human, right? The Four Tendencies are just one small aspect of your personality. They're one teeny little piece. But the thing is, expectations are put on us constantly every day. And so they're a very important, powerful part of our personality. And they can help us understand why we do the things that we do and why we don't do things that we don't do. So what are the tendencies? We're going to take a look. So let's see what we've got here. So if you did not get a chance to download the quiz, there is an online link. You can go to this website and take it, or down in the offers, there's another link to the PDF where you can print it out later and find out exactly what your tendency is. However, I'm thinking that through the descriptions, as we talk about each of the four tendencies, you'll probably be able to get a pretty clear idea of what you are and those around you, which is a lot of fun. So this is the research that I told you about. They did a survey among a whole bunch of adults in the United States and found that obligers are the largest percentage of the population. Second is questioners, and then upholders, and us rebels we're the rebels, we are the smallest percentage and the most rare of the four tendencies. So that's kind of fun and interesting to see where you fall. It also explains why there are so many um, obligers and questioners in our families and friends. So these are the four. Now you notice these circles overlap just a little bit. So if you're an upholder, you could lean slightly to the right or to the left and have a bit of overlap in some of those. So somebody who is an upholder but leans to the obliger side might react a little bit differently than someone who falls to the questioner side. And the same is true for all of the tendencies, but mostly we stick to one central tendency, and that is our main go-to behavior. So how do you respond to expectations? These four types are based upon what kind of expectations are being placed on us and how we respond to them. So both inner expectations, so these are all the things that we expect of ourselves. If you're going to create a system for yourself to achieve a goal, or you're going to start a weight loss program or a fitness training program, these will all be expectations we put on ourselves, right? We want to stick to this thing. Outer expectations might be what our family expects us to do, take care of, our responsibilities at home and at work. All of those kinds of things are outer expectations. And the way that we respond to each one will be different, especially depending on what tendency we are. So here are the four, and we're going to talk about each one in turn and give you a little bit of its strengths and weaknesses for each tendency. So listen for yours and see if you can identify some examples of how your tendency plays out in your life, and then see if you can identify some of the people in your life. So if it's not your tendency, maybe you can think of some other people that you interact with or you have in your circle that are one of the other tendencies. That's always fun. So we're going to start with upholder. Now, upholders meet both inner and outer expectations. They take on everything. They are our rule followers. They follow the rules. They're reliable. They're self-directed. They are all about schedules and systems, and they will stick to them consistently forever. They make great accountability partners for those that you need an accountability partner for. So if there is a schedule set up, they have a very hard time deviating from that schedule. If there is a system, they're going to make sure they follow that system every time. If they have a routine of how that they do things, then that routine is going to be followed each and every time. Now, because they are so strong in following all these rules and systems and schedules, they have a hard time bending rules. They have a hard time when schedules change or when things don't go right. They have a hard time delegating to other people because their desire to fulfill those expectations is so strong. And they can become impatient with other people that don't meet the expectations, right? So, especially us rebels that have a hard time following those systems, they just can't understand why we can't do it. Why can't you follow? It's a system, it's a schedule. Like, why can't you just do it? And so they might think people are lazy or they're just, being difficult when really they might just be a different tendency. So, for example, the upholders, I was a school teacher for a long time, and I subbed in a third grade classroom once. And the upholders, those are the tattletales. They're the ones that can't stand when everybody else does not follow the rules, and they will tell you about it because they are frustrated. They might have anxiety about not following rules. They can also, oh, here's another great one. So I actually saw a commercial this morning. Was it this morning or yesterday? I think it was a State Farm insurance commercial, and it was a woman in labor on her way to the hospital, and she was yelling at her husband not to go too fast because she didn't want to ruin her safe driving record for her insurance, even though she was like on the brink of delivering a baby in the car. But she did not want him to go too fast. And so that would be a great example of an upholder. Now, upholders can often be viewed as very cold and unflexible by other people. So that's the cool thing about understanding all four of these tendencies and being able to identify them in other people, because you start to have more of an appreciation and understanding for people. It's not that they're cold or unflexible, it's just that their tendency for they have to meet expectations. And so if we can kind of be a little bit more understanding about that, then it's a little easier to tolerate and have patience for. Now, you would think upholders, because they're meeting all these expectations, that they would get overworked very quickly, but actually, upholders avoid burnout very well. They are very good at self care because that's an inner expectation that they care for themselves and take the time that they need. And so they're very good at taking that time despite other things happening. For example, if they are out at a party and even if they're having a really good time, they know they have something to do the next day, they have to get up and they know that they need their sleep. And so that inner expectation for rest will take over, even if they're having a great time at the party and it's a bummer to leave. That expectation of themselves takes over, and so they will buck out and say, "Sorry, I have to go." Whereas one of the other tendencies might stay up too late, not get the sleep they need, and deal with it later. Um, so think about upholders in your life and who they might be and what stories you might have around them. I'd love for you to share in the chat. And then we will talk about the next tendency, which is questioners. Now, questioners will meet inner expectations. They will do what they feel is right, but they resist outer expectations from others. Um, so, what does that mean? Questioners, they love the data, they love information. They are willing to play devil's advocate because they like to ask the questions and find out all the info. They like to create systems, not necessarily use other people's systems. They want to create them for themselves so that they know that they are a certain way. And they are unwilling to accept anything without justification. So, questioners need to know why. That's very, very important. They are going to be very unwilling to go along with something if they don't understand the why and the justification for it. And so they may ask lots of questions. They may seek out lots of information um, in search of that justification. Once they have gathered enough information that they can then for themselves make a decision that it is a good choice, then it becomes an inner expectation and they can follow it no problem. But they have to make that justification within themselves in order to follow through. So, because of that, questioners struggle with analysis paralysis. If you've heard that term before, we can analyze, excuse me, questioners can analyze things to death, looking for information, and never finally make a decision. So that can be a weakness for questioners. They're impatient with others' complacency. So if people just go along with whatever, that can be frustrating for a questioner because they need to. Why are you doing that if you don't even know why you're doing it, right? They also have a hard time accepting closure. So if you have someone in your life who, you know, it's over, like it's done, let's just drop it. No, they still need that justification. They still need to understand why it happened. Um, so questioners can drain people with their questions, right? They can seem to be arguing for just for the sake of arguing and feel like they're not quite a team player. So somebody at work who is always arguing, always questioning why you're doing things, or if you're the boss and you're giving direction and they always question why, it can feel like they're not a team player and they're trying to just avoid doing work, but it's not true. If they're a questioner, they just need to understand. They need the justification and the understanding. They got to know why. And once you provide that information, they'll be good to go. So that's a really, really good way to help you motivate some of those questioners in your life and to move on from the argument. Just get them the information as quickly as possible, and you can avoid all of that. Now, sometimes questioners need to come up with their own justification for things because sometimes there just isn't a reason. So a really great example of this, my son Nick is a questioner. without a doubt. And he would often have classes where he did not understand why they had to do these dumb assignments that the teachers were assigning. It didn't make sense. They seemed pointless. They were a waste of time. And he just like, why do I have to do this? This is dumb. Well, there's no good reason. There's no good justification. But if you don't do it, you'll fail the course. You won't graduate. It'll be difficult to get a job in the future, et cetera, et cetera. And so that then becomes the justification to go ahead with the expectation, right? So even though there's not really a good reason why you should do this assignment, other than not doing it might cause more pain than doing it. So avoiding that pain and that consequence can sometimes be the justification a questioner needs. And when there's just no other good information, that can be a workaround. So who are the questioners in your life? I know that you have some. There are lots of them out there. Um, and can be frustrating if you're not a questioner yourself seeking information, right? All right. Next are the obligers. Now, the largest percentage of the population are obligers. Um, obligers are people. They're the people pleasers. They want to make everybody happy. They want to do everything for everyone and help everyone. They make good bosses. They're responsive leaders. They will go the extra mile and they're always responsible. You can always count on them to be there, right? They accept outer expectation, but they will resist inner expectation, which means that as much as they are there for everyone else, they have a hard time taking care of themselves. Because if someone else is in need of them, that comes first every time. And so they are very likely to cancel things that might be good for themselves and to take care of others. Because of this, they're very susceptible to overwork, right? They're going to burn themselves out. And in order to motivate themselves, so those of you that are obligers, if you're starting a workout program, for example, that is going to be very hard to self-motivate yourself to do that every morning. So if you're trying to do a workout tape in your own home by yourself, obligers are going to have a hard time keeping up with that, right? Even going to a gym, if you're going by yourself and nobody's expecting you, you're just setting your own schedule, it's going to be very difficult for an obliger to keep up with and to maintain over time. They need outer accountability, which means you need someone to meet. You need an accountability partner. Obligers do really well when there's accountability partners or people that they have to report to or some sort of accountability, right, outside of themselves. So whether it is a chart that they have to fill in, sometimes that can help depending on the strength of the obliger's need. But sometimes just reporting to someone is helpful. The other problem with obligers is they're very exploitable. So some of us can take advantage of obligers' need to please, right? And ability to be there all the time. So especially at work, when there are tasks that need to be done, they're often delegated to the obligers because we know that they will do them and they will show up and things will get done. But the problem is they tend to end up with more than their fair share of the work because they're so reliable, right? And so this can lead to burnout or what we call obliger rebellion, where they can just cut everybody off. And that's no good. And they become very resentful for being exploited in that way. Now, another reason obligers sometimes can burn themselves out is because they will perceive outside expectations that don't even exist. So, how many times have you seen people doing all sorts of extra work that's completely unnecessary, right? It's not even real. They're doing all of these details in a project, and you're thinking, well, why are you doing all that? You just need to do this. But they perceive those expectations. They perceive that this is supposed to be the way it's done, and this is what needs to get done. So they're doing all of that stuff, even if they don't necessarily need to. So sometimes they can burn themselves out with all of these perceived expectations from other people. So accountability works really well. So if you have an obliger in your life, or if you are an obliger, make sure if you're trying to get something done that you have someone to report to, someone to check in with. You've got to have that outer accountability or you just will struggle, right? Now, Um, the last, uh, the last of the four tendencies is the rebel. So this one I can speak to very well because this is my tendency. Um, Rebels are independent minded. We resist everything. We resist outer expectations. We resist inner expectations. We can't motivate ourselves, and no one else can tell us what to do. So we're very independent minded, but this means we can think outside the box. We're not going to necessarily go along with the status quo or what everybody says should be the way. We're always looking for something unique and some other way to do it just because we can. We are unswayed by conventional wisdom, right? So if somebody says this is the way it's done, I feel like, well, I bet I can find a better way. And that's just the way we think. So we're willing to go our own way, even if we have to, if we have that challenge of going around boundaries. We really look out for our own desires. That's really our goal, is to fulfill our own desires. We do what we choose. So choice is very, very important to rebels. Um, in fact, so a great way to motivate a rebel or to try to get them to do something you need them to do is an information consequence choice um, framework. So you give a rebel the information about what it is, you let them know what the consequence might be if they do or don't do it, and then let them make a choice. Um, and this works really, really well. So my son is actually a rebel also, and so I can't just say to him, you need to clean up your toys, all the Nerf bullets all over the house, right? I can't just say to him, clean up your Nerf bullets, but I can tell him that, hey, your Nerf bullets are all over the floor. We're getting ready to vacuum. Those bullets will end up sucked up in the vacuum and thrown away, or you can clean them up. So what do you want to do? You want to leave them there and get them sucked up, or would you like to put them in your room? And so he usually will make the right choice. But if I just tell him, clean up your Nerf bullets, then it's a fight, it's an argument, it's a conflict, and I like to avoid that when I can. Now, weaknesses of rebels: when we are asked or told to do something, we will resist. Even if we think it's the best choice and the thing to do, we will still resist it because we are told. We don't like to be told what to do. We can seem to be uncooperative. We're really not. We just want to choose and do it our own way. We have a hard time settling in a city or a job. Now, I thought this, my dad was in the military when I was young, and we moved every 3 years. And so I thought that's why I moved every 3 years and changed jobs so many times in my life. But now I'm realizing maybe it's my rebel tendency that when I get into a situation and it becomes routine, I resist it and I need something different. Um, and so we struggle with routine. We struggle with that consistency piece. And so when I realized that I was a rebel, and I knew that about myself, that was the one thing that I was having a hard time with, was consistency over time and creating systems that I could stick to. I always thought there was something wrong with me. Like, why can't I do this? And knowing that I was a rebel just helped me come to peace with that. Like, this is just the way I am. And so I just need to accept that and find different ways. Um, And so that's really important. That's what's really cool about these four tendencies, is once you understand which one you are, it's not about something wrong with you. It's not about um, doing it the right way. It's about finding out what way works for you, right? Now, the cool thing about these tendencies is that they can adapt to so many different areas of our life. Let me just see. Oh, let's go. So let's go through some of these lightning rounds and see if you can identify which one they are. So you're not the boss of me. So which tendency might say something like that? If you said rebel, you are correct. Discipline is my freedom. That's an upholder. They like the discipline, they like the structure, and that helps them feel free and less anxious when they have that discipline, right? Don't lose sight of why. Why is this happening? Why is a question for questioners. That is what they are all about. They need to know why. Do what's right, even when people call you uptight. We can look at upholders as being uptight and unflexible, but it really is them just responding to all the expectations that they have of themselves and that others have of them too. Convince me why, then I'll comply. That is a questioner. If you can convince them why something is a good idea, they will be with you all the way. I'll do everything you ask of me until I won't. So this is the cautionary tale of the obliger. They will be there for you each and every time until you ask too much of them, and then they will rebel. So just be careful about exploiting your obliger friends. You can count on me, and I'm counting on you to count on me. That is an obliger. We can always count on them to show up. It's so hard when I have to, and so easy when I want to. Oh, I identify with this one so much. This is the rebel. So if I have to do something, it's really hard to do it. But when I want to do something, it is super easy, and I can zoom right through. Your lack of planning is not my emergency. These are the upholders being frustrated with those of us that do not meet expectations. They can be frustrated when we don't all follow the rules and the schedule the way they think we should. Because I feel like it or don't feel like it, as us rebels can identify with. May the bridges I burn light my way. This is a rebel. We may burn bridges, but we're gonna go our own way. Even if we have a perfectly good bridge to cross, we're gonna go find our other way to do it, our own way. If I have to, I will. If I want to, I won't. These are the obligers. They do it because they feel like they have to, that outer expectation. But if their inner expectation is that they really want it, they will resist it. And they will always choose the outer expectation over the inner expectation every time. If I want to, I will. If I have to, I won't. Again, this is the rebel. So rebel and obliger is very different. Because I said so, I don't think so. If you tell me that I must, I am going to tell you, no, no, no. And a questioner too, because if somebody says that they should do something, a questioner is not going to follow along until you have given them the information to convince them that it's the right choice. So they will dig in their heels as well until you give them the information as to why. Justification leads to motivation. This is the questioner. They've got to have that justification in order to move forward. Why do we need a motto? This is the questioner. Again, it's the question why. They need to know why we need to do it. So hopefully you found some of those interesting. I am going to change this up a little bit. There we go. So I hope you learned a little something about yourself. I hope you had some aha moments that you can share with us in the chat, or thought about someone in your life that maybe you've had some conflict with. Maybe you've had struggles motivating them. And some of these tendencies you go, oh, that's why I have a hard time with that. These four tendencies can really adapt to so many different areas. Any relationship that you have in your life, whether it be a significant other, kids, clients at work, coworkers that you deal with every day, friends, family, any relationship that you are communicating with people, these four tendencies to come and play, because anytime you're interacting with someone, you have expectations of each other. And so how each other responds to those expectations can be really important in your communication. If you understand the other person's tendency and how they're going to respond to whatever expectation you're putting on them, you can communicate that better and you can avoid the conflict, right? So my kids, as I mentioned, Nick is a questioner, questions everything. He's got to know why. Otherwise, he's irritated and there's no point. And so if I can provide him the reasoning why we need him to do something, then he's much happier to go along with that. And we avoid the fight. We could just yell at him and say, do it because I said so. Do it because you're a kid and we're telling you to. Do it because it's the right thing. And he will be frustrated or refuse. And it could be just a big problem all the time. But if we give him the information up front, then he'll go along with it a lot easier. And we avoid that conflict in the family, which is super important. My youngest, Christopher, is a rebel. And again, the do as I say, clean up your toys, no, doesn't always work. He will refuse. No, I'm not going to do that right now. He'll flat out tell me, no, I'm not going to do that. But if I say that this is what's happening, this is the consequence. So now which do you choose? He will choose it, right? Um, so depending on the tendency of the person that you're communicating with, really depends on how you interact or how you provide information or how you ask for something. Four tendencies also can help you with self motivation. So I mentioned if fitness programs, health programs, if you're trying to lose weight and you're struggling with sticking to a diet or sticking to a program, if you are have a hard time with time management, schedules, calendars, um, work-life balance stuff, if you have goals or dreams that you're working on and trying to work towards and you're struggling with maintaining that consistency or getting things done, these four tendencies, understanding your own response to those expectations that you have of yourself, can really help you, because if you're trying to go about something and using a system that works for someone else and it's just not working for you and you feel like you failed over and over again and you're failing, you feel like I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? Well, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just trying to do something that is not in your tendency. And you just need to change your approach so that it fits your tendency to respond to those expectations, and then you'll have more success. If you come at it a different way, you get better success, and then you can live a more magical life, which is what I'm all about, right? That's what this is all about, is living your more magical life and understanding yourself and how you can relate to others so that you can get more done, motivate yourself, reduce conflict in your life. All of those things can help you in all areas of your life. So I would love you to include any questions that you have in the questions, and I will be sure to answer them for you. I also have an offer for you down below. If you click on offers, I'm putting together an online course, a full four tendency workshop. And in that workshop, we can go deeper into the four tendencies and really talk about their strengths, the weaknesses, and how to overcome those challenges that each tendency has and how they relate to each other. We'll also talk about identifying conflict before it happens, the potential for conflict, so that you can avoid it. Because anytime we can get rid of conflict in our life, it's better, don't you think? Way too much conflict in the world right now. We'll also talk about persuasion and how to motivate people of each tendency and what works best for everyone. So if you are a leader of a team or a coach of a group, or you have kids, how do you get people to do what you want them to do? That's what we're going to talk about. And then we'll talk about some myths and how to appreciate each tendency so we can all live together, because no one tendency is better or worse than the other. No one tendency is more successful or not successful or more prone to a particular job or anything like that. All of the tendencies can be successful. All the tendencies can be happy. It's just about how well we understand how we respond and how well we lean into those strengths and overcome the challenges. Um, so yeah, that's what this is all about. So if you're interested in that course, go ahead and click the offer. You can pre-register so that you get notification as soon as it is live. I will also be available for live workshops. So if you have a business or a workplace that likes to bring people in and do some workshops and you would like people to learn about how to avoid conflict and increase motivation in the workplace, this could be a great workshop for you guys too. So if you would like an in-person workshop, just shoot me a message and we can talk about the needs of your business and figure out how to make that happen. So I have so much enjoyed sharing this with you. Make sure you check out Gretchen Rubin's books, The Four Tendencies, and also Better Than Before, which is a book about habits where she introduces the four tendencies and how to use them to create more habits in your life. Great books, pivotal in myself in my journey over the last couple of years and understanding why I do what I do and what I don't do, why I struggled. And so now I don't have to struggle anymore. I just understand how I respond to expectations and use that information to do better and live a more magical life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please share with a friend if you think they would enjoy it too. I would appreciate that very, very much. I love your comments and any feedback that you have. And I hope you have a fabulous day. Bye for now.